Oh no! But oh, oh, that's so sad. That's existential, Jesus. Oh no. I get that though. Yeah, that's true too. Like, will she change? I don't think she'll change. I think that it's still like, you know, in their heart, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, damn, John. Yeah, see? I find that interesting. Like, you know, life in the village may not be different. Yeah, see? That's what I said! That's so funny. Yeah, see? That's what I said! Oh, I like a pun. Oh, I love them, like, imagining. Nah, bitch, you were in the circus! See, that's what I thought too, but I'm so hooked on the circus theory, man. She's so cute, though. For work. Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Like, outside of Shadow's house may not be any better. You know, happiness is where your people are. I don't know. What is happiness? Yeah, exactly. Emilico is so based in this episode. She's so smart. Oh my god. I mean, she's like half right-ish, you know? Yeah. And their own desires and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Oh my god. They're so smart. Like, what is happening? Oh. Interesting. This is interesting. Oh my god. Damn. Damn. Oh, is that why Shirley kind of like, yeah. Oh no. Because they're figuring out that rum is a veiled doll. Good. Oh. That's interesting. I never thought of it like that. Oh! He thinks that his name... Oh! Oh my god! This is crazy! Oh, they're so cute! Oh, well that's nice. I like that too. That's a good question. Oh my god. Can we find out? I thought we weren't gonna find out that for a while, but like, I have theories about Kate, okay? Oh. Have they not seen the stars? Oh, okay, so they remember the stars. Oh. Oh, this is so nice. I think. Oh, well, this is good. This is great. Like, you know, it's great. This different shadow. Oh god. That's funny. She's probably sleep deprived though, sis. Yeah, maybe they needed a different shadow, you know, because like things happened, it was broken. So it had to be a different shadow's power, and that power's not that good, you know? Or it's different. Yeah, maybe it's a different power. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's heightening emotions. It's not brainwashing. Okay. Who can do that? Right. Okay, so it's just a substitution. Now I understand. Yeah, that was confusing me too. That's smart. So it's Benjamin's power. Maybe. Exactly. Oh, but maybe the reason why they can't ask for more coffee is because they didn't tell Edward. You know what I mean? Like maybe they could make more coffee, but they can't tell Edward. Does that make sense? Like, it's not that it's impossible to make more coffee, but it's that if they asked for more, they would also have to tell Edward and stuff what happened. And so maybe that's just why. Oh, where's everyone else? They scare me. I want to know what's up with them. Oh. Damn. It's super off. Okay, listen, that's not true. Like, I was thinking that. What? Like, you know, I don't think that's true. Oh no! Okay, that is fucked though! Uh-oh! What? Wait, what the fuck? Ah! Oh my god! Ah! I don't like that! What the hell? Oh god! I don't think it's him though. I think that they're just like, you know, fooling with them. I think. No, it's not him. It's definitely not him. They're just joking. Like, you know what I mean? They're just, oh god. Exactly! It was just a prank, bro. Damn. It's not please if you took it. Oh, okay. Jesus. I knew it wasn't him, but like, I knew that they were setting him up to be a red herring or something. That means that my theory about Mary Rose, like, is no longer in danger. They have a weird way of speaking, too. Maybe it has to be two different people's soot. Oh! That's kind of fucked up. A little. You know? Like, you know, I know it, like, it probably doesn't have, like, sentience or whatever, but, like, that's kind of fucked up, man. Lord, that doesn't sound good, though. Like, but, like, then she wouldn't be needed anymore. I don't think that's, okay. Okay, well, okay. I don't know, I think this is kind of bad, to be honest. Like, I don't think that this is a good thing. Me? Oh, just John? Not Shaun and John? Like, John specifically? Uh-oh. That's not good. All right, everybody, let us get into the discussion now. And remember, if you want to support the channel and also see the full timer and subtitle reaction, that is up on Patreon. So again, you can basically watch the whole episode with me instead of just the highlights that is on Patreon. And it is a great way to, you know, help support the channel as well. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that I've been kind of like swamped this week. So I usually try to like respond to everybody's comments and stuff, but I haven't been able to for I think the past 2 weeks now. I've just been like really like overwhelmed and everything, but I just just wanted you guys to know I do read them, especially like you guys that post the really long ones. I read all of it. I see like everybody's like, oh my god, this comment's gotten so long, and I'm just like, yeah, but I'm still reading it. So I just wanted you guys to know, if you've been the ones leaving those comments for the past couple weeks, I do read all of them, even though I've had trouble replying for the past couple episodes or so. I just wanted to acknowledge you guys, make sure that you guys knew that I was seeing your comments and everything. You weren't just like typing them into the void. So I just wanted you guys to know that before we got started. But let us get started. So here's the thing. I think the reason why this episode like took me so long to do the discussion for, because usually I do it on the same day. Obviously you guys can see like I'm wearing different clothes, so it's been you know, a different day, right? And so I think that the reason is because like this episode low-key gave me like an existential crisis. Like, first of all of this was cute, like, oh yeah, you go straight for the most dangerous places, don't you? But like, okay, well this first of all, like the big like Attack on Titan vibes, kind of like, don't you ever want to like see what's beyond the walls? Like that's kind of the vibe that it was giving me. But like to see like Emilico unsettled and depressed, like that's what she says, right? And so like I keep thinking about how I'm human and wondering what that means. I think that that's kind of what got me after this episode and why I kind of needed like especially if you guys are patrons. And you saw my full-length reaction, like at the end, during the end credits, I have a little talk with the patrons that is like, I don't know, it's not like super important, but like it's exclusive to them, and I was like, I need to lie down, I need to think about this, I need to go on the Reddit and see what other people think, but like, oh boy, like it was just one of those things where I watched the episode and I was like, shit, like, you know what I mean? This is giving me an existential crisis, like what does it mean to be human? Like it low-key, I'm not gonna say a panic attack, but you know when you just lie on the floor and like think about your life and like where it all went wrong? Like I think that this episode just gave me a little bit of that, because like what they're talking about is super real, right? And I like how John acknowledges, and we'll get to that because, you know, this is a little bit later, right? But he acknowledges that, like, outside of the house, their lives may not be any better, which I think is very interesting because a lot of anime never address that fact at all, but like I said, we'll get there. First of all, this is, like, crazy because this is true. Like, imagine, I don't think so, because I think that the point of Shadow's house is, like, their memories are erased, but, like, the core of their personality seems to have remained intact to a certain extent, especially, like, with Emilico. She remembers how to juggle and, like, certain things from her past life, so I'm assuming that her personality is like the same. Like I don't think that they'll actually change completely, but it makes sense that that's a concern. You know what I mean? That that's something that they're worried about, right? If we went back, would we be happy, right? Because that's the thing, that's what really, like, got to me, I guess, right? Because here he's basically talking about, like, all of the things about the house that are kind of bad, right? Like, they don't get time to sleep, cleaning is an enormous task, right? They don't get as good, like, meals as their shadow masters, but life in the village may be much of the same, right? And that's kind of, like, the crazy thing, because I don't see a lot of shows address that, you know? Like, I see a lot of shows, not just anime, but just shows with this sort of concept. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go to the overworld and like it's gonna be great, like, you know what I mean? Like just a lot of like fantasy, like young adult novels and everything. Like any I don't know, any like game or show or anime that has this like dystopian society and you're trying to escape, right? It's very common for the characters to be like, well, life is gonna be so much better out there, like wherever out there is, right? And you know, sometimes this kind of like backfires, like Attack on Titan, right? No spoilers for Attack on Titan, but you know, whatever. But like a lot of shows kind of leave it unaddressed and the outside is that utopia. You know what I mean? Like the outside just is better, right? And so I think that it's actually very interesting that there's acknowledgement, at least in Shadow's house, that like village life may not be any better or any easier. And I think that basically what they're going to get at is that home is what you make of it, which I know sounds like super cliche and everything, but I genuinely believe that that's kind of where we're going with this, because like think about it, right? Like say Emilico was a farmer, like she kind of entertains the idea of sort of being, you know, in a couple like frames from now and everything, right? Like that's hard life, right? Like to have to like wake up at like, I don't know, 4 in the morning every day and like tend to the crops and like do all this like heavy manual labor. Like Shadow's house is bad, but life for common people in this, like, even though it's like pseudo history, like this pseudo historical time period, wasn't exactly great either, right? So I think that that's actually very like nuanced and interesting, because I think that a lot of shows fall into the trap of like, well, the outside is better, it's just better, but like that's not really how real life works, right? Like it's just not, like, and it doesn't need to be, right? You can have stories where the outside is better and it's like a message about like, the utopia and everything, hopeful story and hopeful happy ending. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think in the context of Shadow's house, that is kind of like an interesting idea and also kind of a good point. Because obviously we've talked about in the past couple discussions like that Shadow's house is bad and is kind of a cult and is brainwashing people and like doing all these bad things. But, right, the outside world is also not very good all of the time either, right? And so it's like the lesser of two evils. But I think that what they're gonna do is like, do you guys ever see like We Are Cringe, but We Are Free? Like, I think that's basically what it's gonna be, but it's like, we're back in our village life, but at least we get the choice, right? It's not about like Shadow's house is bad and the real world is good. It's about just the freedom of choice. Like, there may be a time where the shadows confront the kids and the Shadow Masters and are like, well, the real world is just as bad as in here, right? For all of these reasons. There's poverty and sickness and, all of these hardships, right? But you at least got the freedom to choose. And I think that that's basically what it's going to be about, is like that freedom to make the choice. Even if life in the village might not be any better, it's about the ability to choose, not necessarily like whether life will actually be better or not. It's about that choice. And I think that that's ultimately what the theme is going to be. And then also kind of a little like, well, like wherever we are, like as long as we're all together, we can be happy. But, and I think that this is kind of where things get like interesting, is can everybody be together in Shadow's house really? If kind of the idea is that people get like called after a while. And so I think that that's kind of important too, is that if the message is like, yeah, like life kind of sucks to a degree everywhere, but it's what you make of it with your friends. The problem with Shadow's house is that your friends get like, yeeted, I guess, like Rum and Shirley kind of did, right? And so I think that there's going to be a lot of those questions and a lot of those themes kind of like in the show, and as the show goes on, it's not even that like that the outside world is necessarily better than Shadow's house. It's just that outside of Shadow's house is the only place that they can all be together because of how Shadow's house operates and the rules that it has. Like, obviously, if the end goal is to be with like Rum and Shirley again, that is not possible in Shadow's house because of like the rules around this system. But then the interesting question is like, if society is just made of a bunch of different systems, like, what if they can't be friends in the outside world either? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just some stuff to think about in regards to that as well. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's very interesting to have them talk about this. Anyway, I like the wondering what they used to do. I think that was really smart. And I said this! Do you guys remember? I said this all the way back in season fucking 1, alright? On like episode 2, I said this, right? So I think that that's actually really interesting. The fact that Emilico is now picking up on that, and I like their sort of like imagined, like this imagined state for Ricky, I think was pretty funny, and I like John, or I guess Shaun, I should say, but, right, their names that the shadows have may have been their names, so I guess now if I mix up the names, it doesn't even matter, because it may have been right anyway, but you guys know what I mean. I also like the pun, that was pretty funny. But yeah, I just love them imagining their lives. And see, this is what I thought too. Like, I thought like I was hooked on like Farmer Emilico for a long time. But now because they've shown Farmer Emilico, I'm like so sure that it's not it and Circus Emilico is the correct answer. But I like how she's just like, oh, I can't decide it. It's like, you can't choose that. Like, it's an objective fact, And so I think that the shop girl thing was kind of confusing, but I'm assuming she means like, I don't know, like at like a jewelry store, like I don't know, not that they have grocery stores back then, but you know what I mean, like the girl that like sells you your eggs or something, like at the market. I don't know, because I wasn't sure what they meant by shop girl in terms of like, what is a shop girl in terms of what it actually like entails, but I'm assuming it means like, like the lady that cashes you out at the fabric store in the village. I don't know, something like that, right? And, you know, it'll be interesting to see, like, what this answer is for, like, Rum, because we know so little about her that it's not really, like, we're not really sure. But I'm sure that Mia sort of falls into that same, you know, like, was obviously a bit, like, higher class, like, had more money because she can also read. And so I just really like this. I like, this, you know, whole conversation. I think it's just really, really good, which will lead to happiness. See, this is what gave me an existential crisis, because I don't know, I think it's kind of hard for the audience sometimes, right? Because you watch shows like this, and you yourself know that the outside world is not, like, that much better because you live in the outside world. Like, you as the audience member live in a capitalistic hellscape, you know what I mean? And so, like, as much as Shadow's House is a fantasy world, it's also based in, like, a historical time period, and so we as the audience know life wasn't exactly that much greater, right? And so I feel like that's what kind of gave me, like, a little bit of a crisis, was this idea of, like, yeah, like, Shadow's House has a lot of problems, you know, and, like, the brainwashing and, like, stuff like that we've already talked about, but this idea of, like, oh, well, which will lead to happiness, it's like, neither will lead to happiness necessarily. You have to make your own happiness in this hellscape that we call living, or something, I don't know, sorry, but yeah, so that's what I was sort of thinking about, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, like, maybe, then this may be something that happens, right? Is that some people do think that living in Shadow's house is genuinely better than living outside, right? And they don't care about the freedom of choice or anything. They just know that it's better. Like somebody like Ollie and Oliver, right? Like, I don't know, and like we don't know, right? About like how the villages are, but you guys watch Beauty and the Beast probably, and how like Maurice is like an outcast because he's making all these inventions and everybody thinks he's a weirdo, right? Like, I'm not saying that that'll necessarily happen to like Ollie and Oliver, but like to some extent, some characters may actually be better off here, right? Just because of how society would treat them. Or even to like some extent like Mary Rose and like Rosemary. Rosemary not so much, but like Mary Rose is a very like masculine, you know, like woman, obviously, and I don't know how that would be taken. See, I don't know enough about history, right, to like make like a call on that, but just like the stereotypical like Victorian history and stuff is like, well, women wear dresses and blah, 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 right? Like gender roles and stuff. That may not be true. I'm just saying, you know, like in terms of like the stereotypical things that people think about when they think about like, oh, the olden times, right? It's usually that sort of like still like gender, I don't want to say gender segregated, but different like gender roles and things like that. Like, I don't know if like people or like Mary Rose wearing pants would be like, okay, like in this period and everything. And so, yeah, you guys can sort of tell me that, but do you guys know what I mean? Like, some of you may be better off here, honestly. Like, you know what I mean? Because at least in the house, they get to, I don't know, like, they get to be, some of them anyway, some of them get to be authentic at least, right? Like, Ollie and Oliver, and then, like, the research team in general, they seem to have kind of a good situation where they can kind of just, you know, build what they want and, like, explore, like, science things. Obviously, they still have to be useful to the house, those science things, but I don't know, and maybe that'll change, right? Maybe that'll be something that, you know, Ollie and Oliver sort of have to grapple, is that if they're truly, like, in pursuit of knowledge and, things like that, Shadow's house is also hiding information from them, you know? And so maybe that'll be sort of the conflict eventually for those two characters, is that they cannot be scientists if they continue to think that the living dolls are actually living dolls, if they don't explore, like, human stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, they can't really be scientists, I guess, if they don't explore, like, humans, if they have false information, or they're being fed false information, I guess you could also say. But do you know what I mean? Like, the idea that the living dolls aren't human is counterproductive to, like, I don't know, science and truth and the discovery of stuff and things. Sorry, guys, I'm totally unhinged this discussion. It's one of those ones where I'm like, do I have any idea what I'm talking about? I don't know, right? But I like this idea too, right? That they're doing this to reduce their humanity in a way. Like, no matter how we're treated, it's because we're treated like dolls. It's to make them less aware of their own autonomy, their own, like, desire for freedom and things like that. Also, obviously this is better, but does this give anyone, like, Detroit Become Human vibes? Like, not like, because Detroit Become Human is kind of sus, but, like, I just mean, like, generally vibes. Like, not that it's bad, because Detroit Become Human is a little bad in, like, some things, but, like, I don't know, all of these, like, autonomy questions, maybe Nier Automata is a better example, I don't know. But anyway, And so, yeah, I think that this is interesting. The opposite is true. So then they were saying that the names may be, like, the names that the Shadow Masters have are their names before they came here. And I think that's so crazy, and that's, like, such interesting, like, lore implications, and that's just also so fucked, right? And so I think what Shaun says is interesting, right, is that, like, they are able to sort of manifest as their interactions with humans continue, because something that we've sort of know, like, roughly, is that shadows are sort of like morphs to an extent, and so they kind of need that, like, human, like, interaction in order to know what to morph into, I'm assuming. Like, I'm assuming that that's sort of the whole thing, right, is that they need that human contact, because if they're, like, morphs, they have to morph into humans, and if they don't know what a human is, they can't do that, right? So clearly they have their own personalities, right? Like, Shaun and John are very different, but you know, like, that personality will develop, or that personhood will develop when they, like, interact with another person. And this could also be why, like, this isn't necessarily the case for everyone, but some Shadow Masters are very opposite to their shadows. And I wonder if that could be because, like, you know, something internally is like, okay, well, this human's like this, so I'll be the complete opposite of this human to be different. Like, not necessarily an intentional thing, but that it could be like, oh, well, you know, Shaun is, like, obviously, like, a bit more introverted and quiet, and then John is very, like, bombastic and, like, loud and unfiltered to an extent. And so I wonder if it's, like, almost an opposite thing. Like, you know what I mean? Is that you see, like, another human being, and then you sort of are like, okay, well, that's what that human's like. What's the opposite of that? And that's who I'll be. I wonder if some of the thought process is like that, even though it's probably, like, a more subconscious thought process. And I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone, because it's totally not. Like, some of them are very similar, obviously, but I wonder if it sort of, like, manifests that way somehow. And so, yeah, they're basically saying, like, how or why Shirley, like, did not develop a personality, or didn't develop, like, a lot of, like, personness, and it's because she didn't interact maybe, like, with Rum enough, basically, to kind of, like, I don't know, gather the vibes of what a human is, right? That's basically what it is, gather the magical vibes. Also, I think the morning clothes thing, that was so smart. I don't think that even dawned on me, like, at all. That's crazy. And so I like this. So here's the thing. I read you guys' comments, and you guys were like, yeah, that, like, Rum thing was an anime only thing, and, like, the manga readers thought for a long time that Rum was, like, dead and never coming back, like Rum and Shirley. And so, like, that was kind of, I don't want to say spoiled, but it was a little spoiled, right, for anime onlys, because people that read the manga were, like, genuinely thinking, because it had been so long, that Rum was never coming back and she just popped back into the story, you know? And so, but then there's this scene where Emilico is realizing that Rum must be among the veiled dolls. So I'm sort of wondering, like, I don't know, like, what, like, how much was anime only, I guess, and how much of this conversation was in the manga, but people still thought that at least Shirley was dead, even if Rum was among the veiled dolls. Do you guys understand what I mean? I guess I'm just curious about that, because I understand that the Shirley running around thing, that was, like, you know, inserted, I guess, that was inserted into season 1 when it didn't actually happen in the manga, but like, the impression I got was that manga readers, at least for a long time, were like, yeah, we're never gonna see Rum and Shirley again, just because it had been such a long time, but now we're getting a lot more, like, frequent Rum and Shirley conversation, it feels. So I'm just sort of wondering about that. Like, I guess, did people think that there was a chance that Rum would be alive, but that Shirley wouldn't? That's probably what you guys thought, right? I'm just assuming, because by this conversation, Emilico seems like, okay, well, one day, you know, we'll find Rum among the veiled dolls, so it was always a possibility that Rum would come back. What I'm assuming was it was the surprise that Shirley was actually still alive, that a lot of people, you know, that was the surprising part, I guess. Anyway, I just think that the rest of this conversation was, like, really, like, wholesome and everything, and I like this idea that, like, you know, Emilico is Kate, but I like that she says that she actually likes Emilico Emilico, she seems to like it better and everything. And so, yeah, I think that this is actually very interesting, right? And that brings up like the Christopher and Anthony thing kind of in my head again, because like everyone else is sort of like, you know, Ricky and Patrick, like Lou and Louise, like they kind of, except for Rum and Shirley, like it's a shorter form of their name already. And so if they wanted to, you know, when they get back to the real world, if they went back to their parents, like being Ricky wouldn't necessarily like be a big shock. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Patrick, you're home. Well, actually, I'm called Ricky now, right? Emilico, that would be the big one. And then like Christopher and like Anthony obviously would be another division. But you guys also told me in the comments that, like, not everyone adheres to this rule. Like, some of them do, but not all of them do. Like, so it's not like that, you know, Christopher and Anthony are necessarily intentionally doing the same thing as, like, Emilico and Kate did, or I guess how Kate named Emilico, which was, like, definitely on purpose. It's just, like, some of the Shadow Masters do that, but then not all of them do, so you guys told me not to think too much about that. But yeah, and so I just think that that's, like, I don't know, it's kind of funny because, like, some of them could definitely go home with the names that they have now, but some of them, like, if they went home, their parents would be like, what? Who? And see, okay, so that's the other thing. I'm assuming if they went home, their parents wouldn't remember them, or they would think that their children were just, like, servants in the house, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would be, like, either one of those things, and so I feel like that if they do ever get outside of the house, like, I don't know if we'll ever see that in terms of the manga. I don't know if they would explore that, just because, you know, a lot of shows do that thing where, like, they have the escape and then it's like, you know, how do you say, vague? It's like, yes, they escaped and, you know, they lived happily ever after, right? They don't show the aftermath, but I think it would actually be interesting, right? Like, I don't know if manga necessarily work like this because, like, of, I don't know, I guess the nature of, like, manga and manga volumes and stuff, but, like, if I had, I don't know, a choice, I guess, I would sort of think that, like, Shadow's House, like, you know, 1, and then Shadow's House 2, like, the sequel almost, to, like, I feel like that it would be interesting to do a whole other, like, manga series about them going back to their lives and, like, what that entails and what that looks like and everything, if it is interesting enough, and there seems to be other magic in the world, right? So I don't know if that would be something that's already just part of, like, Shadow's House, like, the primary storyline, but if it's not going to be, I would be interested in, like, a secondary storyline one day with all of them returning to, like, life. You know? And especially because, like, there's some sketchy stuff with Kate going on, right? Like, Shaun, now I'm gonna get him mixed up because they just said his name is probably actually John, right? So there's some sketchy things with, like, Kate going on, right? Which sort of implies, like, there may be more, like, magic in the world, so they could go on, like, another adventure while it being sort of, like, village, slice of life, and everybody trying to grow up and, like, stay together despite their different social classes. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just sort of, like, thinking, right? I'm just thinking about things. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's something they'll explore too heavily, because I could see the manga being like, yes, they escaped and they lived happily ever after, and, like, maybe there would be an epilogue, but, like, they wouldn't go into it past that, because, I don't know, like, the conflict of the story is Shadow's House, and the manga is called Shadow's House, right? So if they leave Shadow's House, is it still Shadow's House? But I think it would be interesting. I want to know, like, you know what I mean? I want to know about, like, what would happen if they did leave, and, like, where would they go and what would they do and, like, stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, this is like again, I apologize because I'm totally all over the place today, but I just really like this scene and, like, the stargazing stuff, because yeah, they wouldn't see, like, the sky and everything like that, you know? And I think that this is just a really sweet scene and everything else. Right? And so now she's like, why did I feel at such a loss? Like, the reason the sight moves me is because I'm human, not a living doll, right? So she's like, I'm not depressed anymore, or at least, like, why was I depressed? Like, now everything's okay, because we get to see, like, the starry sky, right? And so I think that's nice. And see, she mentions Rum again, right? So I'm assuming there was always foreshadowing that, like, Rum would come back. It was just, again, Shirley, that people were not sure about. Okay, so here's the thing. You guys are gonna have to tell me about this, because, like, so I read the comments, like I said, and people were saying that, like, there was an earlier interaction with the robed figure and Emilico and John during the, like, night watch expedition. Is that what it's called? What was it called again? You know what I mean? Like, that arc, that one time where they were, like, walking around. Like, you guys remember that? And, like, Shirley was there and it was nighttime and they were, like, walking and stuff, right? And so, like, was this interaction that interaction? Or is this like another interaction? Does that make sense? Did they put the interaction that was supposed to be in season 1 and stick it over here? Because they were kind of doing something similar with, like, you know, with the map, weren't they? Or something, like they may have had a map that could have been taken. Or is this supposed to be here? Does that make sense? I'm just like, okay, is this the old interaction that the robed figure was supposed to have with the team before? Like with Emilico and or Shaun, and they're fixing it? Or is this like, did this happen? So there was like 2 times that they encountered the robe person. One time was in season 1, but this is actually supposed to happen, and this happened like in the manga at this point. So this would be the second time if you were reading the manga, but it's just the first time for us because they cut the other one. Does that make any sense? So yeah, I'm sort of wondering, because I don't know, like I'm not your enemy, but I'm not your ally either. Like I feel like that's like vague enough and not connected to their conversation at all that could have been the season 1 thing, but also like, I don't know, it could have been like in the manga at this time period as well. But I think it's just weird how they grab the map and just fuck off. So that's why I'm like, was this in the manga though? Because this is kind of strange. Like this is just a really weird interaction for them to grab the map and look at what they're doing and just disappear. That's why I'm like, is this an anime-only interaction to sort of bridge things from like the cut interaction from season 1, you know? And so I just think that that's sort of weird, right? And I'm like, what can it be after? I don't even know at this point. It did sound kind of feminine though, even though it was distorted. So like, you know, the Mary Rose theory is living still, right? Is still living, because it was distorted, but it sounded like female voice that was distorted. And so I think that they probably wouldn't have that in the end credits, because that would be a big spoiler if like Mary Rose's voice actor also voiced the robed person, right? But I don't know. So yeah, and so you can see too, like I really like how with the ceremony and everything, you can see that the eye thing is actually different, like the eye effect and stuff, and so that was a good hint to things being different. And I just love how like Emilico is like acting in this scene and everything, and I like how Kate figures out how it must be different, it must not be the same effect. It seems like basically like somebody is making the coffee out of somebody's soot, and you can basically make coffee out of anybody's soot to an extent, like to a degree. And so making the coffee out of Benjamin's soot, with his power being like emotional heightening or something, changed like the effect of the coffee, I guess that's basically what they say, right? And so I don't have a lot to say about this, but we'll get to, I guess, Kate's explanation. So the first thing is that Kate theorizes that it's like also psychological in a way. It's like for psychological peace of mind. It's not necessarily, you know, like the same like rejoicing party. It's also like there's a psychological element, and I think that that's actually like very interesting, right? Here's something interesting though about what's going on over here, right? Like obviously the coffee's not the same, but I feel like, I don't know, I guess Barbara is doing the same hand thing as everyone else. She's just at an angle, but I don't know, she doesn't look as rejoicing as everybody else does. So I just thought that that was interesting, or Barbie, I should say. Did I say Barbara? But yeah, you know what I mean? She doesn't look as rejoicing, right? And so if it heightens emotions, like it probably just heightens the grumpy emotions she already had in a sense, right? And so I think that that's interesting, right? That like basically someone with enough soot to manipulate everyone's emotions, and they think that it's Benjamin, or she thinks that it's Benjamin, I should say. Right? And so I guess, like, here's what I don't understand. Did they put Benjamin's soot in the coffee? Or did he, like, because in this scene, he's doing something kind of weird, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that was just for, like, dramatic effect, but there was soot falling during the scene. So was it, like, the coffee was fake, but, like, when they inhaled his soot, that's when it happened? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was airborne? That's the only thing I don't quite understand about this part. Powers that act on emotions must certainly have an effect outside of the designated range. And so, like, she's basically saying that it was Benjamin, you know what I mean? And so I think that that's sort of like, I don't know, I'm just sort of confused about, like, was Benjamin's soot in the coffee, and they made coffee with Benjamin's soot, and so therefore, like, the emotional heightening affected everyone? Or, like, was this scene actually, like, real of him doing the soot thing while everyone was too busy, like, rejoicing? And so he's, like, kind of, like, low-key, like, you know, sootified everyone, like, for a temporary time or something like that. That's the only thing I didn't quite understand, right? I guess it also just doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if his soot was in the coffee or if he just controlled people, like, with, like, his soot inhalation, like, from afar or whatever. I did think that the coffee seemed different than usual. I mean, that's something that Kate says, too, is that, oh, they must have just drunk ordinary coffee and then something else happened, right? And so I think that that's probably the answer, is they just drunk regular coffee, no Benjamin soot, and then Benjamin just used his soot powers on everyone from afar, and it had, like, a lasting, like, AoE effect, you know? That's basically what I think happened. And I think this is smart too, because this is something I didn't really realize until now, right? Is that it may not necessarily be that the coffee can only be made once a week. You know, like, it may not necessarily be that the shadow can only produce enough soot to make the coffee once a week. It's also just because they can't fucking tell Edward, right? Or else Edward will know that they fucked up the last coffee, and so that's the situation that they're in. It's not necessarily that the adult who makes this coffee can't make more. It's possible that they have that coffee, like, in abundance, right? But because they can't tell Edward what's going on, you know, exactly, the phantom disturbance hasn't reached the adults, exactly, right? And so I think that's interesting, is that there could be more coffee out there, but they can't tell Edward, so they can't get it. And so I think that that was, like, interesting. You know, I think that that was a good point, basically, because I sort of had the idea of, oh, the shadow can only make it once a week. Like, I thought it was literally that. I don't think it is literally that. I think it's like that the shadow knew that Barbara would be apprehensive to tell Edward the truth, and therefore they couldn't get any more. Like, the robed person knew that. But yeah, I think that this part of the episode is great, like, with Jeremiah and Jeremy. Like, I thought that that was really interesting. I like sort of the comedic stuff. I like John getting a focus. I thought that that was actually good. I think, like, again, this conversation's funny. I like how, I guess, Jeremy, like, you know what I mean, is, like, talking for him. Like, he talks in very short sentences, like the shadow, but then, you know, he, like, talks for him in a way. And so I think that it's interesting how John jumps to a conclusion, but Jeremiah's, like, not even offended, right? And so I really like this. This part was, like, super creepy. I like this, too. If Jeremiah is the culprit, what are you gonna do? Like, he's not even offended. He's just like, okay, well, let's say I was. What are you gonna do about it? Like, he actually just wants to know. The spider thing is really creepy, though. It's so weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's your shadow power? And so, yeah, I just really like their interactions with each other. I like how, like, they high-five each other, too. Like, what was that, a prank? I think that was a great red herring, especially with last episode, how it was like, yeah, this guy's kind of sus, because they said it's a male. You know, he's in the shot as Kate is talking about who Master Robe could be. So he was a good red herring for, like, 5 minutes. But if Jeremiah is out of, how do you say, out of the running, I think that, like, again, my theory about Mary Rose being the shadow, like, Mary Rose and Christopher, I guess, both being the shadow at different points in time. You know, the robed person, I guess. I think that I'm still right, because, like, at first I was like, like, Jeremiah, like, he's a little sus, like, you know what I mean? But now that they've, like, unsussed him, I think that it's, you know, it's probably I was right. But, like, they really, like, threw him in here to throw us off the trail just for a couple episodes or so. And I like how John falls asleep and everything. But yeah, I like the explanation, like, sort of the lore stuff about the scorches and everything, and, like, the density and, like, their combination, right? And so it seems like that only, like, maybe certain people can make a phantom, though, because he said that he still couldn't make one, even, you know, with all of that time, right? And so here's what I think about this. I think that it's because, like, maybe, like, phantoms can only be made, right? Like, let's see. Before transforming into the phantom, the scorches seem to be density level 3, right? And so that's interesting, right? Like, they talk about the density levels, but I think that maybe the twist of it is that a phantom can only be made if you have multiple soot put together, because they basically say that they tried to create a phantom, but they couldn't. Like, no matter how high density we raised the scorches, they never grew to a larger size like the phantom, right? And so, like, Shaun says something about, like, it being made with soot powers, which I think, like, is a good guess, but I also wonder if it could be possible that it's not just soot powers, but rather the combination of different people's soot. You know what I mean? Because Jeremiah did a bunch of experiments, and I'm assuming those experiments were, like, with his own soot? Like, you know what I mean? Like, unless they, like, mix the soot of, like, the science club together. But something in last episode was that the soot became more easier to manage when, like, they had rolled all of their soot together to, like, make their, like, clay things, right? So I wonder if the phantoms, if that's supposed to be foreshadowing the fact that the phantoms work in a similar way, it has to be multiple people's different density, and that's what helps combine together to make a phantom. It could also just be that it is someone's soot power, like John said, like, you know, or Shaun said. It could just be that, like, a spade is a spade. They literally told us the reason it's somebody's soot power to make phantoms or something. But the question with that is that Christopher also talks about phantoms when he was, you know, house warden man. Like, you know what I mean? When he was star bearer, I guess. House warden is Twisted Wonderland. It's not that different, but you know what I mean. And so, like, with that in mind, the phantoms were even, like, a concern of happening naturally back then. And so that would mean that the phantoms would have to be from, like, an adult or a person that was there even, like, before Christopher. And so that's why I don't think it's necessarily, like, somebody's individual soot power, just because, like, that would be, I don't know, like, you know, they would have to be someone who was around for a long time to be able to, like, make the phantom. And then the other question is, if that is true, and if, like, Christopher knew that phantoms existed, I mean, I guess it could be multiple people with a soot power that allows for phantoms and stuff. Like, it could be multiple characters, you know, like, maybe it was an adult and then they grew up, and, like, maybe it is Mary Rose, and then, like, Mary Rose grows up, and then the next generation there's someone who can do that, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, there's only one person in the world that can create phantoms, right? But I'm just saying, like, if they were even around in Christopher's time, you know, I don't know if it would necessarily be somebody's, like, individual, like, soot power, like how Louise has, like, the mind emotion control thingy. Like, you know, I feel like that it would have to be something else, maybe, or, like, that maybe adult shadows, all of them can do it, or, like, all shadows can do it, but they have to learn, like, some special technique as to how or something. So, yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking. And, yeah, like, I think that that's interesting, too, is that they want a face, right? Because that's the thing, right? Like, in this episode, they talk about how, like, Shirley did not fully develop a personality because she didn't spend that much time with her human. So I wonder if the Scorches, they're just trying to be human too. They just want, like, personhood and stuff. And so when you think about it, like, you know, he's like, oh yeah, the Scorches have no, like, sentience or whatever. But, like, is this not a little fucked up? Like, just at least a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's just, like, you know, in Kingdom Hearts, there are Heartless, and the Heartless go after humans because they, like, it's complicated, but, like, it's a whole thing. And, like, the Nobodies go after humans because they think that, like, by killing humans, they can kill their human and return to their human form through killing their human that's a nobody or whatever, right? I don't know how to explain this properly. Kingdom Hearts is kind of whack, but, like, basically, you know, in Kingdom Hearts, there's kind of a similar thing like this, where the Heartless will go after people's hearts because they think that, like, that'll help them return to their own body of the person that they used to be. Basically, something like that anyway. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm like, yeah, I guess they're not, like, sentient, I guess, but, like, isn't this kind of sad? This, like, Scorch just wants to be, like, human or something, and so this is kind of fucked up. I don't know, again, Detroit become human, right? Like, it's just like, he's almost just like a little robot, like, he just wants to be a person. I don't know, I find it kind of fucked up. I also like this justification. He's so considerate of Barbara. That means Oliver's in love with Barbara, which means that, like, you know, he's not in love with Kate, right? Because anyway, I think that was something, like, even Shaun was like, Ollie, like, what are you doing? Get away from Emilico. Like, even in the last couple episodes, right? Even Shaun had that sort of concern. But, like, isn't that concerning, though? Is, like, if Barbara wouldn't need to admit as much soot, she wouldn't be useful anymore, you know? So that's kind of bad. I don't know. But they could do it in some sort of, like, hierarchy, if that makes sense. Like, you know, the rich people get the soot power and then the other people get the coal. Like, they could still use both power supply, you know, but I do think that's kind of, you know, concerning. Is John thinks that it's actually, like, a good thing, you know, like, oh, he's so considerate of Barbara, like, then she wouldn't have to admit soot and not be in pain anymore and whatever, but, like, then she wouldn't be useful anymore, and so that's a little concerning. Also, I didn't realize this, but Ollie and Oliver over like hunch a lot. I only realized this now, like while watching this episode. And so yeah, this is a little sus. I'm a little worried about this, to be honest. This doesn't seem good. It seems like that they're gonna interrogate him, you know, and it's just John. So that's the other sus thing too, you know, like maybe Emilico is also going to be there because they saw them on the roof or something. Like maybe it's both of them, right? But I do think that that's kind of concerning, right? That they just say John, like not even like Shaun and John. It's just John. I'm sure Shaun will go too, right? But like, yeah, there's just a sort of suspicious things going on for it to be just John. And I'm like, could this be another red herring? Because they've done that a lot. They've done like Ollie seemed like angry about the science or the research club's like wall coming down, but actually he just wanted to like experiment on Emilico. Like they've done that a lot recently, but I think that this is actually kind of concerning and a little bit sus, and I'm a little scared. You know, I feel like that they're gonna try to like pit John almost against Emilico and be like, do you know something about this? Like da 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 da. And that maybe that'll be connected to the idea I had about like Barbara, Mary Rose, and Christopher all being in on something together, and then one of them like turning, right? So I wonder if they're talking to Shaun in order to like find dirt about Emilico and Kate or something like that. But yeah, I think that's basically it for this episode, guys. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it here today. I don't really have anything else to talk about, but I hope that you guys enjoyed this one, even though it was a little chaotic, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for attending Calxiyn's Royal Court, and I will see you in the next one. Remember to check out the Patreon for the full-length reaction. And then if you want to support these, of course, and I will see you later. Bye!